The library that wasn't there yesterday, in the fog-choked valley of Blackhollow, where the air hums with secrets and the hills guard their silence. Clara Wren stumbles upon a library that wasn't there yesterday. Its dark stone walls pulse with life, its books whisper cosmic truths, and its shadows know her name. Marked by glowing spirals on her palms, Clara is chosen as the keeper, bound to a labyrinth of stars, riddles, and doors to nowhere. But she's not alone. The librarian, with eyes like voids, watches her every step, and the library's hunger grows, threatening to swallow Blackhollow whole. As the shelves close in and the stars scream, Clara must face a haunting truth. The library's secrets could unravel her world. Welcome to the library that wasn't there yesterday, a cosmic Gothic mystery. Dare you step inside? Chapter 1. The Fog and the Forgotten Door. The town of Blackhollow sat nestled in a valley where the hills seemed to lean in, as if guarding secrets. It was a place where the sun never quite broke through the mist, and the air always carried a faint smell of damp earth and old wood. Clara Wren, a girl of 13, with a tangle of dark curls and eyes that saw too much, lived in a small house on the edge of town. She wasn't like the other kids, who spent their days kicking stones or chasing each other through the fields. Clara preferred the quiet, the places where the world felt thin, like you could poke a finger through it and touch something else entirely. That morning, a Saturday in late October, Clara woke to a fog so thick it pressed against her window like a living thing. It wasn't unusual for Blackhollow to be cloaked in mist, but this fog was different. It shimmered faintly, like it was woven with threads of silver, and it muffled every sound except a strange, low hum that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Clara pressed her face to the glass, her breath fogging the pane, and squinted into the haze. The street was gone. The neighbor's house, the crooked oak tree, the rusted mailbox swallowed whole. She pulled on her boots, a worn sweater, and her father's old coat, which was too big but warm. Her parents were still asleep, their snores drifting faintly. From the next room, Clara didn't wake them. She never did when she went exploring. They'd worry, and she hated their worried faces, the way they'd ask questions she couldn't answer, like why she was always drawn to the strange corners of Blackhollow, the places no one else seemed to notice. Outside, the fog wrapped around her like a cold hand. The hum grew louder, tugging at her chest, pulling her forward. She walked down the street, her boots crunching on gravel that sounded too loud in the stillness. The town was silent, no dogs barking, no birds chirping, not even the distant rumble of a car. Just the hum, steady and insistent, like a heartbeat buried in the earth. Clara didn't know where she was going, but her feet seemed to. They carried her past the bakery, its windows dark, past the post office with its peeling paint, and toward the empty lot at the end of Willow Street. The lot was a patch of dirt and weeds, a place where kids sometimes played but mostly avoided, because it felt wrong. Old folks said it was cursed, that something bad had happened there long ago, but no one could agree on what. Clara had always felt a pull toward it, like a magnet in her bones. Today, the lot wasn't empty. In the center, where there should have been nothing but mud and scraggly grass, stood a building. It was tall and narrow, made of dark stone that glistened like it was wet. Towers jutted from its roof, their tips lost in the fog. Windows, tall and arched, glowed with a faint, sickly light, like the last embers of a dying fire. The building looked ancient, its walls carved with strange symbols that twisted and curled like vines. But it hadn't been there yesterday. Clara was sure of it. She'd walked past this lot 100 times, and there had never been anything but dirt. The hum was louder now, vibrating in her teeth. It came from the building, no, from something inside it. Clara took a step closer, her heart pounding. The air felt heavy, like it was pushing her back, but she pressed forward. At the front of the building was a door, massive and made of black wood, with a knocker shaped like a serpent eating its own tail. The knocker gleamed, catching the faint light in a way that made it look alive. Clara's hand hovered over the knocker. She didn't know why she wanted to touch it, only that she did. Her fingers brushed the cold metal, and a jolt ran through her, sharp and electric. The hum stopped. For a moment, the world was so quiet she could hear her own blood rushing in her ears. Then the door creaked open, just an inch, revealing a sliver of darkness. She should have run. Every story she'd ever read, every warning her grandmother had whispered about strange places, told her to turn back. But Clara wasn't like other kids. She was curious, too curious, and the darkness beyond the door called to her like a song. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The air inside was warm, thick with the smell of old paper and something sharp, like ozone after a storm. The door slammed shut behind her, and she spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. But the door was gone. Where it had been was a smooth stone wall, carved with the same twisting symbols she'd seen outside. She pressed her hands against it, searching for a seam, a handle, anything, but it was solid. She was trapped. Clara turned slowly, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. She was in a vast room, its ceiling lost in shadows. Shelves towered around her, stretching up and up, filled with books. Thousands of them, maybe millions, their spines cracked and faded. Some bound in leather, others in cloth, some in materials she couldn't name, shimmering, almost liquid. The shelves weren't straight. They curved and spiraled, forming mazes that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking. Lamps hung from chains, their light flickering like candles, casting strange shadows that danced across the floor. This was a library, but it wasn't like any library Clara had ever seen. The air hummed again, softer now, and the books seemed to pulse with it, as if they were alive. She took a step forward, her boots echoing on the stone floor. The sound was too loud, like a shout in a church. She froze, waiting for something to happen, but nothing did. Just the hum, the shadows, and the books. Clara walked deeper into the library, her fingers trailing along the shelves. The books were strange. Their titles were in languages she didn't recognize, some in letters that twisted like the symbols. On the walls, others in scripts that seemed to glow faintly. One book, bound in deep blue leather, caught her eye. Its title was in English, The Weight of Unseen Stars. She reached for it, her fingers trembling, but before she could touch it, a voice spoke. "Who are you?" Clara spun around, her heart hammering. The voice was low, smooth, and came from everywhere. At once, she looked around, but there was no one. Just the shelves, the lamps, the shadows. "I'm Clara," she said, her voice shaking. "Who are you?" Silence. Then the voice again, closer now, like it was standing just behind her. "You shouldn't be here." Clara turned again, but there was still no one. The air felt colder, heavier, like the library itself was watching her. "Where am I?" she asked. The voice didn't answer. Instead, the shadows moved. They peeled, away from the walls, slithering across the floor like ink. Clara backed away, her back hitting a shelf. The shadows gathered in front of her, forming a shape of figure, tall and thin, with no face, just a blur of darkness where a face should be. It raised a hand, and the air crackled with static. "Leave," it said. Clara's legs wouldn't move. She wanted to run, to scream, but her body felt frozen, pinned by the weight of the figure's gaze. The shadows around it pulsed, and the hum grew louder, shaking the shelves. Books began to fall, their pages flapping like wings. One landed at Clara's feet, its pages open to a drawing of a door, the same door she'd entered through, with the serpent, Knocker. The figure took a step closer, and Clara's fear broke. She bolted, running down the aisle, her boots pounding against the stone. The shelves twisted around her, the aisles narrowing, the shadows chasing. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get out. The hum was deafening now, rattling her bones, and the air was thick with the smell of ozone and something sweeter, like rotting flowers. She turned a corner and stopped dead. There, in the middle of the aisle, was the door. The same black wood, the same serpent knocker. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed the knocker and yanked the door open, expecting to see the foggy lot, the town. Anything familiar, instead, there was a staircase. It spiraled down into darkness, its steps worn and uneven, lit by the same sickly light as the windows. The hum was coming from below, stronger now, pulling at her like a tide. The shadows were behind her, their whispers filling the air with words she couldn't understand. Clara didn't want to go down the stairs, but the shadows were closing in, and the door was her only way out. She took a deep breath, clutched the sleeve of her father's coat, and stepped onto the first step. The door slammed shut behind her, and the library was gone. The staircase seemed to go on forever. The walls were stone, damp and cold, carved with more of those twisting symbols. The light flickered, making the shadows dance. Clara's heart pounded, but she kept going, one step at a time, the hum growing louder with every step. She didn't know what was waiting for her at the bottom, but she knew she couldn't go back. After what felt like hours, the staircase ended. Clara stood in front of another door, smaller this time, made of iron and rusted at the edges. The hum was so loud now it made her head ache. She reached for the handle, her hand shaking, and pushed the door open. Beyond it was a room, smaller than the library, but no less strange. The walls were covered in mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of the room, some dark, some bright, some filled with fog. In the center was a table, and on the table was a book. It was the same blue book she'd seen upstairs, The Weight of Unseen Stars. It was open, its pages glowing faintly, and the air around it shimmered like heat rising from pavement. Clara approached the table, her reflection fractured in the mirrors. The hum was coming from the book, and as she got closer, she saw that the pages weren't paper, they were moving, rippling like water. Words swam across them, forming and dissolving, and in the center of the open page was a single sentence, written in ink that glowed like starlight. "The library chooses its keepers." Clara reached out, her fingers hovering over the page. The air crackled, and the mirrors flickered, showing glimpses of other places, stars, oceans, cities made of glass. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt it. The library wanted her. It had called her here, through the fog, through the door, down the stairs. It wasn't an accident. Before she could touch the book, the mirrors shattered. Glass rained down, and the shadows poured in, no longer formless but sharp, with claws and eyes that burned like embers. Clara screamed, stumbling back, and the book snapped shut. The hum stopped, and the room went dark. When the light returned, Clara was back in the lot. The fog was gone, the air clear and cold. The building was gone too, as if it had never been there. She stood in the middle of the dirt, her heart racing, her hands trembling. The town was quiet, the streetlights flickering on as dusk settled in. Clara ran home, her boots kicking up dust. She didn't tell her parents what had happened. They wouldn't believe her. But that night, as she lay in bed, the hum returned, faint but unmistakable. It was in her head now, a whisper that wouldn't leave. And under her pillow, where she hadn't put it, was a single page torn from a book. It glowed faintly, and on it was written one sentence: "The library chooses its keepers." Clara didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the page, knowing that the library wasn't done with her. It was out there, waiting, and tomorrow she would go back to the lot. Because Clara Wren was curious, too curious, and the library knew it. Clara didn't sleep. The page under her pillow glowed faintly. Its words burned into her mind. The library chooses its keepers. She turned it over and over, her fingers tracing the strange, shimmering ink that seemed to move under her touch. By morning, the glow had faded, but the hum was still there, a soft buzz in her head like a bee trapped in a jar. It wasn't loud, but it was constant, pulling at her, urging her to move. She slipped out of bed before her parents woke, pulling on the same boots in her father's oversized coat. The page went into her pocket, folded carefully, its edges crisp against her fingers. Outside, Blackhollow was waking up. The bakery's chimney puffed smoke, and a dog barked somewhere down the street. The fog was gone, leaving the air sharp and cold, but the town felt different now, like it was holding its breath. Clara headed straight for the lot on Willow Street. She didn't know what she'd find, but she knew she had to go back. The hum grew louder with every step, vibrating in her chest like a second heartbeat. When she reached the lot, her stomach twisted. It was empty, just dirt and weeds, same as always. No stone building, no glowing windows, no serpent knocker door. She stood there, her breath clouding in the chilly air, feeling foolish but also certain. The library had been real. She wasn't crazy. She walked the lot, kicking at the dirt, searching for anything, a mark, a clue, something to prove she hadn't dreamed it. Nothing, just mud and a few broken bottles glinting in the weak sunlight. She was about to turn back when the hum spiked, sharp and sudden, making her wince. It wasn't in her head anymore, it was coming from the ground. Clara dropped to her knees, digging with her hands. The dirt was cold, clinging to her fingers. But she kept going, driven by the hum that pulsed stronger with every scoop. Her nails scraped something hard, and she froze. Brushing away the soil, she uncovered a small, flat stone, no bigger than a dinner plate. It was smooth, black, and carved with the same twisting symbols she'd seen on the library's walls. The hum was deafening now, rattling her teeth, and the stone was warm under her touch. She pressed her palm against it, and the ground shook. Not hard, just a tremble, but enough to make her heart skip. The air shimmered, like heat rising from pavement, and the lot changed. The weeds vanished, the dirt smoothed out, and there it was, the library, towering and dark, its stone walls glistening, its windows glowing that sickly light. The serpent knocker door stood before her, gleaming like it was waiting. Clara's hands shook as she reached for the knocker. She didn't want to go back inside, not after the shadows and the mirrors, but the hum was pulling her, and the page in her pocket felt heavy, like it was alive. She grabbed the knocker, the metal cold and slick, and the door swung open without a sound. Inside, the library was the same but different. The shelves still towered, packed with books that seemed to breathe, but the air was heavier, thick with dust and that sharp, stormy smell. The lamps flickered, casting shadows that moved too slowly, like they were watching her. The hum was softer now, a whisper under the silence, and Clara felt it guiding her deeper into the maze of shelves. She walked slowly, her boots echoing on the stone floor. The aisles twisted, turning in ways that didn't make sense, like the library was rearranging itself. She passed books with titles that made her head hurt: The Song of Broken Moons, A Map of Vanished Hands, The Weight of Unseen Stars. That last one stopped her. It was the book from yesterday, the one on the table, in the mirror room. But now it was here, on a shelf, its blue leather spine glowing faintly. Clara reached for it, but a sound stopped her, a whisper, soft and quick, like someone breathing words just out of reach. She turned, expecting the shadow figure from before, but there was nothing, just the shelves and the flickering light. The whisper came again, from the other side of the aisle, then from above, then behind. It wasn't one voice, but many, overlapping, weaving together into a hum that matched the one in her head. Who's there? Clara called, her voice small in the vastness of the library. The whispers stopped, then started again, louder, clearer. She couldn't make out the words, but they felt urgent, like a warning or a plea. She backed away from the shelf, her heart pounding, and the whispers followed, swirling around her like a flock of birds. She ran, the aisles blurring past, the whispers chasing her. The shelves seemed to lean in, their books trembling as she passed. She turned a corner and stopped short. The aisle ended at a wall, but not a stone one like before. This was wood, polished and dark, with a small door set into it, no taller than Clara herself. It had no knocker, just a brass handle shaped like a crescent moon. The whispers were louder now, pressing against her ears, and the hum in her head was a roar. She grabbed the handle, expecting it to be locked, but it turned easily. The door opened, revealing a narrow hallway lit by candles that floated in the air, their flames blue and steady. The whispers stopped, but the hum didn't. It pulled her forward, and Clara, too curious to turn back, stepped through. The hallway was long, its walls lined with more books, but these were different. They were small, no bigger than her hand, and their covers were blank, made of materials that shimmered like glass or pulsed like skin. The candles cast strange shadows, and Clara saw her own reflection in the walls, but it wasn't quite right. The Clara in the reflection moved differently, her eyes too bright, her smile too sharp. At the end of the hallway was another door, this one made of glass. Beyond it, Clara could see a room filled with light, not the sickly glow of the library, but something warm, golden, like sunlight trapped in honey. The hum was coming from there, and the page in her pocket burned against her leg. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was small, its walls curved like the inside of a dome. In the center was a pedestal, and on it sat a book, not the blue one, but a new one, its cover black and studded with tiny, glowing specks like stars. The air around it shimmered, and the hum was so strong Clara felt it in her bones. The whispers started again, but they weren't in the air. Now they were in her head. clear and sharp. Open it, they said. Read. Clara's hands shook as she approached the pedestal. The book was heavy, its cover cold under her fingers. She opened it, and the pages glowed, not with words but with images, stars swirling, planets spinning, a sky that wasn't Earth's. The whispers grew louder, telling stories of places that didn't exist, of people who weren't human, of secrets buried in the dark between stars. Clara's head spun, the images flooding her mind, too much, too fast. She slammed the book shut, and the whispers stopped. The hum faded, but the room didn't. The golden light pulsed, and Clara felt something watching her, not the shadow figure from before, but something bigger, older, like the library itself had eyes. She backed away, clutching the page in her pocket, and ran for the door. The hallway was gone. The glass door now opened to another part of the library, a vast chamber with a ceiling that looked like a night sky, stars twinkling in patterns Clara didn't recognize. The shelves here were different, made of something that looked like bone, and the books were chained to them, their covers rattling as if trying to break free. Clara's heart raced. She didn't know where she was, but she knew she couldn't stay. The whispers started again, softer now, guiding her through the chamber. She followed, weaving through the shelves, until she found another door, this one plain wood, with no handle, just a keyhole. The page in her pocket felt heavier, and when she pulled it out, it wasn't a page anymore. It was a key, small and silver, with the same serpent design as the library's front door. She slid the key into the lock, and the door opened. Beyond it was the lot on Willow Street, the real world, the morning sun just breaking through the clouds. Clara stepped out, and the door vanished behind her, leaving her standing in the dirt. The key was gone, but the hum was still there, faint but persistent. She ran home, her mind buzzing with what she'd seen, stars, whispers, books that weren't books. That night, she didn't sleep again. The hum was louder now, and the library's call was stronger. She knew it would be back, and she knew she'd go, because Clara Wren was too curious, and the library wasn't done with her yet. Clara's days blurred into a haze of whispers and hums. The library's call clung to her like damp fog, tugging at her thoughts whether she was eating breakfast or staring out her classroom window. It was Monday now, 2 days since she'd stepped out of the bone-shelf chamber, and the hum hadn't stopped. It was quieter in the daylight, muffled by the chatter of kids and the drone of teachers, but at night it grew sharp, filling her dreams with stars that screamed and books that pulsed like hearts. She hadn't told anyone, not her parents, not her best friend Leela, who'd only laugh and call her weird. Clara wasn't sure she'd believe herself either. The page, or key, or whatever it had been, was gone, but its weight lingered in her pocket like a ghost of itself. She checked the lot on Willow Street every morning before school, hoping and dreading the library's return. It was always just dirt and weeds, mocking her with its emptiness. By Wednesday, she was starting to think she'd imagined it all, that the hum was just a trick of her tired mind. But that afternoon, as she walked home, the air changed. It grew heavy, charged, like the moment before a storm. The hum surged, loud and insistent, and Clara's feet turned toward Willow Street without her deciding to go. The lot wasn't empty this time. The library loomed, its dark stone walls glistening under a sky that had turned Bruce purple. The serpent knocker door gleamed, and Clara's heart pounded as she approached. She didn't want to go in, but her hand reached for the knocker anyway, pulled by the hum that vibrated in her bones. The door swung open before she touched it, revealing the familiar vastness of shelves and flickering lamps. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of old paper and that sharp electric temps. The shelves towered, their books whispering faintly. But the library felt different today, hungrier somehow. The shadows moved too quickly, darting across the floor like fish in a stream. Clara clutched her coat, her father's old one, and stepped forward. The hum guided her deeper into the maze, past shelves that curved like ribs and books with titles that made her eyes ache. The silence of falling worlds, a litany of forgotten names, the weight of unseen stars. That title again. Clara froze, her breath catching. The blue leather book was back, sitting alone on a shelf that seemed to glow faintly, as if lit from within. The hum was coming from it, stronger now, pulling her closer. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and this time nothing stopped her. The book was heavy, its cover cold and smooth, like glass kissed by frost. She opened it, and the pages weren't pages, they were liquid, shimmering like a pool of starlight. Words swam across them, forming and dissolving, and the hum became a voice, low and ancient, speaking in a language she didn't know but somehow understood. "Read," it said. "See." Clara's fingers brushed the page, and light exploded. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming, flooding her mind with images, galaxies spiraling, cities of crystal floating in voids, creatures with too many eyes watching from the dark. The book was alive, its pages bleeding starlight that dripped onto the floor, pooling around her boots. She tried to pull her hand away, but it was stuck, the starlight clinging to her skin like honey. The voice grew louder, chanting words that felt like knives in her head. Keeper, chosen, bound. She yanked her hand free, stumbling back, and the book snapped shut. The starlight on the floor vanished, but her hand burned, and when she looked, her palm was marked a faint, glowing spiral, like one of the symbols on the library's walls. The hum softened, but the voice didn't stop. It whispered now, inside her, telling her to keep going, to find the next door. Clara ran. The shelves twisted around her, the aisles narrowing, the shadows chasing. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to move. The library felt alive, its walls pulsing, its books rattling on their shelves. She turned a corner and found a staircase, not the spiral one from before, but a wide stone one that led up, its steps worn smooth by time. The hum urged her on, and she climbed, her legs shaking, her marked hand throbbing. The staircase ended at a landing where a single door waited. It was iron, rusted and heavy, with no handle, just a slot shaped like the spiral on her palm. Clara hesitated, her breath ragged. The whispers were back, swirling around her, and the hum was a roar. She pressed her hand to the slot, and the spiral glowed, bright and hot. The door groaned open, revealing a room that made her gasp. It was vast, its ceiling a dome of black glass that sparkled like a night sky. The walls were lined with shelves, but these held no books, only orbs, thousands of them, glowing with colors Clara couldn't name. Some pulsed like stars, others flickered like dying coals. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and on it sat the blue book, the weight of unseen stars, its cover glowing brighter than before. The starlight was leaking from it now, dripping onto the floor, forming a pool that rippled and moved. Clara approached, her marked hand burning. The whispers were louder, chanting her name, and the hum was a song now, beautiful and terrible. She opened the book, and the starlight poured out, wrapping around her, pulling her in. She saw things worlds beyond worlds, skies that burned, creatures that sang in voices that broke her heart. The book was telling her something, showing her secrets too big for her mind to hold. She felt herself slipping, her thoughts unraveling, until a new voice cut through the chaos. Enough. It wasn't the whispers or the hum. It was sharp, human, and close. Clara blinked, and the starlight faded. She was still in the room, the book closed on the pedestal. Standing before her was a figure not the shadow from before, but a woman, tall and thin, with hair like spun silver and eyes that glowed like the orbs on the shelves. Her dress was black, shimmering like the library's walls, and her face was kind but wrong, like a mask that didn't fit. "Who are you?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "A keeper," she said, "like you will be." Clara shook her head. "I'm not. I don't want. You don't choose," the woman said, her voice soft but firm. "The library does. It called you. It marked you." She gestured to Clara's hand. "Where?" The spiral glowed faintly. Clara backed away, her heart racing. "I just want to go home." The woman's smile faded. "You can't. Not yet. The book isn't done with you." Before Clara could argue, the room shook. The orbs on the shelves flared, their light blinding, and the starlight pool on the floor surged, rising like a wave. Clara screamed, but the woman grabbed her arm, her grip cold and strong. "Read," she said, pushing Clara toward the book, "or it will take you." Clara's hand moved on its own, opening the book again. The starlight poured out, but this time it didn't overwhelm her. It showed her one finger door, not the iron one behind her, but a new one made of light floating in the air. The whispers chanted, "Go, go, go," and the hum was a drumbeat. Clara pulled free from the woman and ran for the door, diving through it as the starlight surged behind her. She landed in the lot, the real world, the air cold and sharp. The library was gone, the sky clear, the town quiet. Her hand still burned, the spiral mark glowing faintly. She ran home, her mind spinning with stars and voices, knowing she couldn't escape. The library had marked her, chosen her, and it would call her back. The book wasn't done, and neither was she. Clara's world felt smaller, sharper, like the edges of everything had been carved with a knife. The spiral mark on her palm throbbed, a constant reminder of the library, its starlight, and the woman with glowing eyes. It was Thursday now, and she hadn't gone back to Willow Street. She told herself she wouldn't, that she'd stay away, but the hum in her head disagreed. It was louder at night, weaving through her dreams, showing her glimpses of shelves that stretched forever and books that whispered her name. She kept her marked hand in her pocket at school, hiding it from Lila's curious glances and her teachers' watchful eyes, but she couldn't hide from the library's pull. That afternoon, the sky over Blackhollow turned heavy, clouds piling up like bruises. Clara walked home slowly, her boots scuffing the gravel, her thoughts tangled. She hadn't told anyone about the library, not her parents, who'd think she was making it up, or Lila, who'd tease her for being spooky. But the secret was heavy, pressing on her chest, and the hum was a rope, tugging her toward Willow Street. She fought it, turning down a different road, past the old church with its cracked steeple. But the hum grew sharper, stinging like a bee, and the air shimmered, just for a moment, like it had in the lot. Clara stopped, her heart pounding. The street was empty, but she felt watched, not by eyes, but by something bigger, like the town. itself was staring. She turned back, her feet moving before her mind caught up, and headed for the lot. It was there. The library stood in the center of the dirt, its dark stone walls gleaming under the stormy sky. The serpent knocker door seemed to pulse, and the hum was so loud it made her teeth ache. Clara's hand shook as she reached for the knocker, but the door opened before she touched it, creaking wide like a mouth. She stepped inside, the air warm and thick with the smell of dust and lightning. The library was different this time. The shelves were closer, the aisles narrower, like the walls were squeezing in. The lamps flickered, casting shadows that didn't match the light long. Thin shapes that moved on their own, slithering across the floor. Clara's marked hand burned, the spiral glowing faintly, and the hum was a voice again, whispering one word over and over: find. She walked deeper, her boots echoing too loudly on the stone. The shelves loomed, their books trembling, some rattling like they wanted to leap free. The titles were stranger than before, the echo of unmade things. A catalogue of lost skies, the weight of unseen stars. That book again. It was on a shelf. To her right, its blue leather glowing, but Clara didn't touch it. The starlight from last time still haunted her, the way it had poured into her mind, showing her things too big to hold. The shadows moved faster now, pooling at her feet, climbing the shelves like vines. They weren't just shadows, they had shapes, vague and shifting, with arms too long and heads that weren't quite right. Clara's breath hitched, but she kept moving, following the hum. It led her to a corner where the shelves parted, revealing a wall of black stone carved with symbols that twisted like smoke. In the center was a door, small and wooden, with no handle, just a carved spiral that matched the mark on her palm. The shadows whispered now, not the voices from before, but something new, sharp, jagged words that scraped her ears. What walks, but never steps? One said, its voice like breaking glass. What sees, but has no eyes? Asked another, soft as a sigh. Clara froze, her heart racing. The shadows were closer, their forms clearer tall, thin, with faces that were blanks, except for glowing slits where eyes should be. I don't know, Clara said, her voice shaking. Leave me alone. The shadows laughed, a sound like wind through dead leaves. Answer, they said, circling her, their voices overlapping. Answer or stay. Clara's mind spun. She didn't understand riddles, never had, but the hum was urging her, pushing words into her head. A dream, she blurted, the answer coming from nowhere. A dream walks but doesn't step. It sees but has no eyes. The shadows paused, their glowing slits narrowing. Then they parted, slinking back into the corners, and the door's spiral glowed, matching her palm. Clara pressed her hand to it, and the door swung open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down. The air beyond was cold, smelling of damp stone and something sour like old milk. The hum was stronger, pulling her forward, and the shadows. Whispers followed, softer now, chanting, "Keeper, keeper, keeper." She descended, her boots slipping on the slick steps. The staircase was tight, the walls pressing close, carved with more symbols that seemed to move when she wasn't looking. The lamps here were different, small, floating orbs that pulsed like heartbeats, their light green and sickly. Clara's hand burned, the spiral glowing brighter with every step, and the hum was a song now, wordless but heavy with meaning. At the bottom was a chamber, smaller than the others, its walls rough and unpolished. In the center stood a table, and on it was a book, not the blue one, but a new one, its cover red and cracked like dried blood. The title was inked in gold, The Riddle of the Hollowed Sky. The hum came from it, and the shadows were here too, not chasing her now, but watching, their glowing slits fixed on the book. Clara approached, her marked hand trembling. The whispers started again, not the shadows' voices, but the library's, chanting, "Read, read, read." She opened the book, and the pages were blank at first, then filled with words that crawled like spiders, forming riddles that twisted her thoughts. What burns but is never consumed? What falls but never lands? What speaks but has no tongue? Clara's head hurt, the riddles piling up, each one sharper than the last. She tried to answer, but the words slipped away, and the shadows crept closer, their whispers joining the book's. "Answer," they said, their voices a chorus. "Answer or stay." She panicked, her mind blank, but the hum pushed a word into her head. "Star." She said it aloud, her voice cracking. "A star burns, but isn't consumed. It falls but never lands. It speaks in light, not with a tongue." The shadows hissed, retreating, and the book's pages flared, the words dissolving into light. The light became a shaper door, not wood or iron but pure light, floating above the table. The hum was deafening, urging her forward, and Clara stepped through, her heart pounding. She was back in the lot, the library gone, the sky dark with storm clouds. Rain started to fall, cold and sharp, and Clara ran home, her marked hand burning, the riddles still echoing in her head. She didn't sleep that night. The hum was louder, the shadows' voices clearer, and she knew the library wasn't done. It had tested her, marked her, and it would call her back. The riddles weren't just words, they were keys, and Clara was starting to understand what they unlocked. Clara's world was unraveling. The spiral mark on her palm glowed faintly, even in daylight, a secret she hid under gloves she'd stolen from her mother's drawer. It was Friday, and Blackhollow felt wrong to quiet, to still, like a town holding its breath before a scream. The hum in her head was constant now, a low buzz that sharpened when she passed certain places, the crooked oak by the bakery, the cracked fountain in the town square, the lot on Willow Street. She hadn't gone back since the riddles, since the shadows and the book that bled light. She told herself she was done, that she'd ignore the hum, but it was a lie. The library had her, and she knew it. At school, she was distracted, her pencil tapping rhythms that matched the hum. Lila noticed, asking if she was okay, but Clara brushed her off with a mumble about not sleeping. She couldn't tell Lila about the library, the starlight, or the shadows that spoke in riddles. She couldn't tell anyone. The mark on her hand burned, and the hum whispered, "Come back, come back, come back." By dusk, the pull was too strong. The sky was heavy with clouds, the air thick with the promise of rain. Clara slipped out of her house, her boots quiet on the gravel, her father's coat heavy on her shoulders. Willow Street was empty, the lot waiting like a trap. The library was there, its dark stone walls glistening, its windows glowing with that sickly light. The serpent knocker door gleamed, and Clara's marked hand ached as she reached for it. The door opened before she touched it, swinging wide with a sigh. Inside, the library was colder, the air sharp with the smell of frost and old ink. The shelves loomed, their books trembling, some glowing faintly, others rattling like chained animals. The hum was a voice now, clear and insistent, saying, "Find her." Clara didn't know who her was, but her feet moved, carrying her through the twisting aisles. The shadows were here, slithering along the floor, but they didn't speak. They watched, their glowing slits tracking her every step. The aisles led to a new part of the library, a chamber with a high vaulted ceiling painted with stars that moved, swirling in patterns that made Clara dizzy. The floor was a mosaic of black and white tiles, forming spirals that matched the mark on her palm. In the center stood a desk, massive and carved from dark wood, piled with books and scrolls that seemed to shift when she blinked. Behind the desk was a figure, the woman from the orb room, her silver hair glowing, her eyes like twin moons. "You came back," the woman said, her voice smooth but cold, like water over stones. She didn't move, but the air around her shimmered, and Clara felt if the woman wasn't human. Her skin was too perfect, her movements too smooth, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. "Who are you?" Clara asked, her voice small in the vast chamber. The woman tilted her head, her smile sharp. "I am the librarian, and you are the keeper." Clara shook her head, stepping back. "I'm not anything, I just want to go home." The librarian's eyes glowed brighter. "The library chose you. The mark binds you. You cannot leave until it is done. What's done?" Clara's hand burned, the spiral glowing through her glove. "What do you want from me?" The librarian gestured to the desk, where a book lay open, its pages glowing with the same starlight Clara had seen before. It was the weight of unseen stars, but different. Its cover was cracked, like it had aged 100 years. "Read," the librarian said. No, Clara didn't want to, but the hum was a command now, pulling her forward. She approached the desk, her marked hand trembling. The book's pages were alive, the starlight moving like water, forming images of places that weren't Earth skies with 3 suns, oceans of glass, creatures that sang in colors. The hum sang too, filling her head with words she didn't understand but felt in her bones. The librarian watched, her eyes unblinking. "The library holds truths," she said. "Truths that burn, truths that break. You must carry them." Clara's hand hovered over the page, the starlight warm against her skin. "Why me?" she whispered. The librarian's smile faded. "Because you see, because you listen, because you are too curious to turn away." Before Clara could answer, the shadows moved. They poured from the walls, not formless now, but solid, with claws and teeth that glinted like knives. They didn't attack, but they circled, their glowing slits fixed on her. The librarian didn't move, but her voice was sharp. "Read, or they will take you." Clara's heart raced. She touched the page, and the starlight surged, flooding her mind. She saw the library's heart, a vast pulsing thing. Not a machine or a creature, but something else. Something that breathed secrets and ate silence. It was alive, and it was hungry, and it wanted her. The images shifted, Blackhollow burning, the sky splitting, stars falling like rain. Clara screamed, pulling her hand away, but the starlight clung, marking her other hand with a new spiral. The librarian stepped closer, her eyes blazing. "You cannot stop it. The library is eternal. You are its voice." Clara stumbled back, the shadows closing in. The hum was deafening, the starlight burning her skin. She ran, the aisles twisting around her, the shelves bending like trees in a storm. The shadows chased, their whispers sharp and hungry. "Keeper, keeper, keeper." She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to escape. She found a door, small, wooden, with a spiral carved into it. Her marked hands glowed, and when she touched it, the door opened, revealing a hallway lined with mirrors. The reflections showed her, but not her Clara with glowing eyes, Clara with claws, Clara with wings of starlight. She ran through, the mirrors shattering behind her. The shadow screaming dot at the end was another door, this one made of stone, cold and heavy. She pushed it open and fell into the lot, the library gone, the night air sharp and real. Rain poured, soaking her coat, and Clara ran home, her marked hands burning, the hum still in her head. She hid in her room, staring at the spirals on her palms, knowing the librarian wasn't lying. The library had chosen her, and it wouldn't let her go. The truths it showed her were too big, too heavy, and they were only the beginning. Clara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. The spiral marks on her palms glowed faintly, even under the gloves she wore day and night. It was Saturday, and Blackhollow was wrapped in a quiet that felt wrong. Like the calm before a storm you could smell but not see. The hum in her head was a constant companion now, no longer just a sound but a presence, whispering fragments of the library's secret stars that screamed, skies that bled, truths that burned. She hadn't gone near Willow Street since the librarian's cold words and the shadow's hungry chase, but the pull was stronger than ever, tugging at her like a hook in her chest. She stayed in her room all morning, ignoring her mother's calls for breakfast. The spirals on her hands throbbed, and the hum sang a single word, return. Clara tried to distract herself, flipping through old comics, but the pages felt wrong, their colors too bright, their stories too small. The library had changed her, and the real world felt thin, like paper stretched too tight. By noon, she couldn't fight it anymore. She pulled on her father's coat, her boots, and slipped out, her heart pounding as she headed for the lot. The library was waiting. Its dark stone walls shimmered under a sky that was too grey, too heavy, like it was pressing down on the town. The serpent knocker door gleamed, and Clara's marked hands burned as she approached. She didn't touch the knocker. The door opened on its own, a slow creak that sounded like a sigh. The hum surged, welcoming her, and she stepped inside. The air was colder than before, sharp with the smell of metal and something sweet, like rotting fruit. The shelves towered, their books trembling, some glowing, others whispering in voices too soft to understand. The shadows were here, slinking along the floor, but they didn't chase her this time. They watched, their glowing slits flickering, like dying stars. The hum guided her deeper into the maze, past aisles that twisted like veins, until she reached a new chamber. It was vast, its ceiling lost in darkness, its walls lined with clocks, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, ticking in a rhythm that didn't match the hum. Some were small, pocket-sized, others as big as doors, their faces made of glass, wood, or something that looked like bone. Their hands moved backward, not forward, counting down to something Clara couldn't see. The ticks were loud, overlapping, a chorus that made her head ache. In the center of the room stood a single clock, taller than Clara, its face black and studded with stars, its hands spinning backward so fast they blurred. The hum was coming from the clock, and Clara's marked hands burned as she approached. The spirals glowed brighter, casting light on the floor, and the whispers started again, not the shadows, but the library itself, chanting, "Look, look, look." She didn't want to, but her eyes were drawn to the clock's face. The stars on it moved, swirling like the images in the book, forming pictures: a town burning, a sky splitting, A girl with glowing eyes holding a book that bled light. Clara gasped. The girl was her. Before she could step back, the clock chimed. A deep, hollow sound that shook the room. The other clocks joined in, their ticks and chimes blending into a roar that made Clara's ears ring. The shadows moved, not attacking but circling, their whispers sharp. Time runs backward, time eats itself. Answer or stay. Clara's mind spun. The hum pushed words into her head, but they were jumbled, like pieces of a puzzle she didn't understand. "What's happening?" she shouted, her voice lost in the chimes. The shadows didn't answer, but the clock's hands slowed, and its face glowed, showing her more Blackhollow swallowed by fog, the library growing, its walls stretching into the sky, books spilling out like blood. The hum sang, "Keeper, you must hold the time." Clara stumbled back, her marked hands throbbing. The shadows closed in, their glowing slits blazing, and she ran, the clock's chimes chasing her. The aisles twisted, the shelves bending, the books rattling like they wanted to leap free. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to escape the clocks, the shadows, the truths the library kept showing her. She found a door, small iron, with a spiral carved into it. Her marked hands glowed, and when she touched it, the door opened, revealing a hallway lined with hourglasses. Their sand flowed upward, defying gravity, glowing faintly like the starlight in the book. The hum was softer here, but the whispers were louder, chanting, "Find the heart, find the key." Clara walked, her boots echoing on the stone floor. The hourglasses pulsed, their sand swirling in patterns that matched the spirals on her hands. The end of the hallway was another door, this one made of glass, its surface etched with stars. Beyond it, she saw a room filled with light, not the sickly glow of the library, but something warm, like firelight. The hum urged her forward, and she pushed the door open. The room was small, its walls covered in gears and cogs, all turning backward, clicking in time with the clocks outside. In the center was a pedestal, and on it sat a book, not the weight of unseen stars, but a new one, its cover silver and smooth, like liquid metal. Its title was inked in black, "The Hour of Unraveled Time." The hum came from it, and Clara's marked hands burned as she approached. She opened the book, and the pages were alive. Not with starlight, but with time images of moments that hadn't happened, moments that never would. She saw herself, older, standing in the library, her eyes glowing like the librarian's. She saw Blackhollow gone, replaced by shelves that stretched forever. She saw stars falling, clocks stopping, the world unraveling. The hum sang, "Hold thee, time, keep the heart." Clara slammed the book shut, her heart racing. The gears on the walls spun faster, the room shaking, and the shadows were back, their whispers sharp, "Answer or stay." She didn't know the answer, didn't understand what the library wanted, but the hum pushed a word into her mind, "Forever, forever." She said aloud, her voice trembling, "Time runs backward to forever." The shadows hissed, retreating, and the gears slowed. The book's cover glowed, and a key fell from its pages, silver and small, with a spiral handle. Clara grabbed it, her marked hands burning, and ran for the door. The hallway was gone, replaced by the lot on Willow Street, the library vanishing as she stepped through. The sky was dark, rain falling, and Clara clutched the key, her breath ragged. She ran home, the hum still in her head, the key heavy in her pocket. The clock's chimes echoed in her mind, and she knew the library wasn't done. It had given her a key, shown her time that ran backward, and marked her as its keeper. The truths were piling up, too heavy to carry, but Clara couldn't stop. The library was calling, and she would answer. Clara's life was no longer her own. The spiral marks on her palms burned under her gloves, and the silver key in her pocket felt like a weight dragging her toward Willow Street. It was Sunday, the air heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth, and Blackhollow seemed smaller, as if the town were shrinking under the library's shadow. The hum in her head was a constant pulse, weaving through her thoughts, whispering fragments of the library's truths clocks that counted backward, stars that fell, a world unraveling. She hadn't slept properly in days, her dreams filled with gears and shadows, and the librarian's cold voice, "You are the keeper." She stayed inside all morning, avoiding her parents' worried glances. Her mother asked if she was sick. Her father muttered about her being too quiet, but Clara brushed them off. How could she explain the library, the key, the marks? Even Lila, who'd always listened to her wild stories, would think she'd lost it. The hum grew louder as the day dragged on, chanting, "Return, return, return." By dusk, Clara couldn't fight it. She slipped on her boots, her father's coat, and tucked the key deeper into her pocket. The lot was calling, and she had to answer. Willow Street was empty, the sky a swirl of grey and purple, like a bruise spreading across the heavens. The library stood in the lot, its dark stone walls gleaming, its windows glowing with that sickly light. The serpent knocker door waited, and Clara's marked hands throbbed as she approached. The key in her pocket grew warm, and the door opened before she touched it, revealing the familiar maze of shelves and flickering lamps. The air inside was sharp, smelling of old paper and something bitter, like burnt sugar. The shelves loomed, their books trembling, some glowing faintly, others whispering words she couldn't catch. The shadows were here, slinking along the floor, their glowing slits watching but not chasing. The hum guided her deeper into the library, past aisles that twisted like rivers, until she reached a staircase she hadn't seen before. It was spiral, carved from black stone, its steps narrow and worn, disappearing into a darkness that seemed to breathe. Clara's marked hands burned, the spirals glowing brighter, and the key in her pocket pulsed, matching the hum. She climbed, her boots slipping on the slick steps, the air growing colder with every turn. The walls were carved with symbols, spirals, stars, and strange shapes that moved when she blinked. The hum was a song now, wordless but heavy, pulling her upward. She didn't know what was waiting, but the library wanted her to see. The staircase ended at a landing, small and round, with a single door. It was wood, old and splintered, with a keyhole shaped like a spiral. Clara pulled the silver key from her pocket, its handle warm and glowing. She slid it into the lock, and the door creaked open, revealing a room unlike any she'd seen in the library. It was small, its walls curved like the inside of a seashell, glowing with a soft, golden light that seemed to come from nowhere. The floor was glass, reflecting the light in patterns that shifted like water. In the center was a pedestal, and on it sat a book-knot, the weight of unseen stars, but a new one, its cover green and shimmering, like moss under moonlight. Its title was etched in silver, The Song of the Spiral Stair. The hum came from it, and Clara's marked hands ached as she approached. The shadows were here, not circling but standing still, their glowing slits fixed on the book. The whispers started, not the shadows' voices, but the library's, chanting, "Open, open, open." Clara's hands shook as she reached for the book. Its cover was warm, almost alive, and when she opened it, the pages glowed, not with starlight, but with a green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Words formed, curling like vines, telling stories of places that didn't exist, frosts of glass, rivers that flowed upward, skies where stars sang instead of shone. The hum sang too, filling her head with images herself, standing on the spiral stair, holding the book, her eyes glowing like the librarian's. She saw Blackhollow swallowed by the library, its streets replaced by shelves, its people gone, their voices trapped in books. The words on the page shifted, forming a question. What holds the spiral's heart? Clara's mind reeled. The shadows moved closer, their whispers sharp. Answer or stay. She didn't know, but the hum pushed a word into her head, soft but clear. Balance, balance, Clara said, her voice trembling. The spiral's heart is balance. The shadows hissed, retreating, and the book's pages flared, the green light surging. The room shook, the glass floor cracking, and Clara stumbled back, clutching the book. The light became a shape, a door, not wood or iron, but pure light, floating in the air. The hum urged her forward, and she stepped through, the book still. In her hands, she landed in the lot, the library gone, the night air cold and sharp. The book was gone too, but the key was still in her pocket, and her marked hands glowed faintly. The hum was softer now, but it wasn't gone. It whispered, "Keeper, you are close." Clara ran home, her heart racing, the spiral stairs song echoing in her mind. The library was changing her, binding her, and the truths it showed her were too big to hold. But she couldn't stop. The room beyond the stair had shown her something: balance, a heart, a purpose, and she knew she'd go back. Clara's dreams were no longer her own. Every night, the library invaded them shelves, stretching into infinity. Stars screaming in alien skies, and the hum that pulsed like a living thing. The spiral marks on her palms glowed even through. Her gloves and the silver key in her pocket felt heavier each day, as if it carried the weight of the library itself. It was Monday, and Blackhollow seemed to fade around her, its streets too quiet, its colors too dull. The hum was louder now, a constant song that wove through her thoughts, whispering, "Come, come, come." She hadn't gone back to Willow Street since the spiral stair, since the green book and its question about balance. The truths the library showed her Blackhollow swallowed, herself changed, were too big, too frightening. But staying away didn't help. The marks burned, the key pulsed, and the hum grew sharper, like a needle in her mind. By evening, as the sky turned the color of old bruises, Clara gave in. She pulled on her boots, her father's coat, and slipped out, the key warm in her pocket. The lot was waiting. The library stood tall, its dark stone walls shimmering under a sky that flickered with strange, distant lights. The serpent knocker door gleamed, and Clara's marked hands throbbed as she approached. The door opened before she touched it, a slow creak that sounded like a breath. She stepped inside, the air thick with the smell of ink and something sharp, like rain on hot stone. The library was different again. The shelves were closer, their books trembling, some glowing, others whispering in voices that slithered through. The air, the shadows were here, sliding along the floor, their glowing slits watching but not chasing. The hum guided her deeper into the maze, past aisles that curved like bones, until she reached a new chamber. It was small, its walls lined with shelves, but these held no books, only bottles. hundreds of them, filled with ink that moved like liquid starlight. Some glowed blue, others red, a few black as the void. In the center was a table, and on it sat a single bottle, larger than the rest, its ink swirling in patterns that matched the spirals on Clara's hands. A quill lay beside it, its feather black and shimmering, like it was carved from night. The hum was coming from the bottle, and Clara's marked hands burned as she approached. The whispers started, not the shadows' voices, but the library's, chanting, "Write, write, write." She didn't want to touch the quill, but her hand moved on its own, reaching for it. The feather was cold, almost alive, and when she picked it up, the ink in the bottle surged. Rising like a wave, a blank book appeared on the table, its pages empty but glowing faintly, like the starlight from before. The hum sang, and Clara's marked hands glowed brighter, the spirals pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She dipped the quill in the ink, and it moved, not by her will but by something else, dragging her hand across the page. Words formed, not in her handwriting, but in a script that curled like the library's symbols. They told a story, her story, but not as she knew it. The ink wrote of Clara, a girl chosen by the library, marked by spirals, bound to its heart. It described Blackhollow crumbling, its people turning to dust, their voices trapped in books. It spoke of stars falling, skies tearing, and a keeper who held the balance of time. Clara's heart raced as the quill moved faster, the ink glowing brighter, spilling onto the table, dripping to the floor. The words weren't just words, they were alive, pulling at her mind, showing her glimpses of herself with eyes like the librarian's, standing in a world of endless shelves. "Stop," Clara shouted, dropping the quill. The ink stopped moving, but the words on the page glowed, pulsing like a heartbeat. The shadows were closer now, their glowing slits blazing, and they whispered, "Write or stay." Clara's mind spun. The hum pushed a word into her head. Truth. She didn't know why, but she grabbed the quill again, her hand shaking, and wrote the word on the page. The ink flared, the book slamming shut, and the room shook, the bottles on the shelves rattling, some cracking, their ink spilling like blood. The shadows hissed, retreating, and a door appeared, not wood or iron, but a shimmering curtain of ink floating in the air. Clara ran for it, the hum roaring, the whispers chanting, "Keeper, keeper, keeper." She stepped through the curtain, and the world shifted. She was back in the lot, the library gone, the night air cold and sharp. The key was still in her pocket, but the quill was there too, its feather glowing faintly. Her marked hands burned, the spirals brighter than ever. She ran home, the ink's words echoing in her mind, her story, the library's story, a truth she couldn't escape. The hum was softer now, but it wasn't gone. It whispered, "You are." The keeper. Clara hid in her room, staring at the quill, the key, the marks on her hands. The library was rewriting her, binding her to its will, and she knew it wasn't done. The ink had written her truth, but there was more to come, and Clara couldn't turn away. Clara was drowning in the library's grip. The spiral marks on her palms burned day and night, glowing through her gloves like embers under ash. The silver key and the black quill in her pocket were constant weights, reminders of the ink that wrote itself and the truths it carved into her mind. It was Tuesday, and Blackhollow felt like a shadow of itself, streets too quiet, skies too heavy, as if the town were fading into the library's fog. The hum in her head was a song now, relentless, weaving through her thoughts with whispers of stars, time, and balance. She hadn't slept properly in days, her dreams filled with shelves that bled ink and voices that called her keeper. She avoided Willow Street, telling herself she could resist, but the hum grew sharper, stabbing like a splinter. At school, she was a ghost, ignoring Lila's questions and her teacher's frowns. The spirals on her hands throbbed, and the quill in her pocket seemed to hum too, urging her back. By evening, as the sky turned a sickly green, Clara gave in. She slipped on her boots, her father's coat, and headed for the lot, the key and quill warm against her skin. The library was there, its dark stone walls gleaming under a sky that flickered with unnatural light, like stars caught in a storm. The serpent knocker door pulsed, and Clara's marked hands ached as she approached. The door swung open before she touched it, a slow groan that echoed in her bones. She stepped inside, the air thick with the smell of dust and something metallic, like blood or iron. The shelves loomed, their books trembling, some glowing, others whispering in voices that slithered through the air. The shadows were here, sliding along the floor, their glowing slits watching but not chasing. The hum guided her deeper into the maze, past aisles that twisted like roots until she reached a new chamber. It was vast, its walls lined with mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of the room, some dark, some bright, some filled with fog or stars. The reflections weren't still. They moved, showing glimpses of other places, other Clarissa with glowing eyes, her with ink-stained hands, her standing in a world of endless shelves. In the center was a single mirror, taller than the rest, its frame carved with spirals that matched her marks. The hum came from it, and Clara's hands burned as she approached. The whispers started, not the shadows' voices, but the library's, chanting, "Look, look, look." She didn't want to, but her feet moved, pulling her closer. The mirror's surface was black, not silver, and it didn't reflect her, it showed a void, deep and endless, filled with eyes, thousands of them, glowing like stars, watching her, unblinking. Clara's heart raced. The eyes moved, shifting in the void, some human, some not, slitted, faceted, or glowing with colors she couldn't name. The hum sang, and the whispers grew louder, chanting, "See, see, see." She tried to look away, but the mirror held her, its eyes pulling at her mind, showing her things Blackhollow, burning, the library growing, its shelves swallowing the sky. She saw herself, older, her eyes like the librarian's, holding a book that bled starlight. The eyes whispered, "Keeper, you are bound." Clara's marked hands glowed, the spirals blazing, and the mirror's surface rippled like water touched by wind. A hand reached out, not hers, but another Clara's, with claws instead of fingers, its skin shimmering like ink. She screamed, stumbling back, but the hand grabbed her wrist, its touch cold and sharp. The mirror pulled, and Clara fell through, landing in a room that wasn't the library but something else, a space where the walls were mirrors, each one showing a different Clara, a different truth. The hum was deafening, the eyes everywhere, watching from every mirror. The whispers became voices, overlapping, speaking in languages she didn't know but understood. They told her stories of worlds lost, stars stolen, a library that held the universe's secrets. They called her keeper, said she was chosen to guard the truths, to hold the balance. Clara's head spun, the mirrors closing in, the other Claras, reaching for her, some with wings, some with eyes like voids, some with hands that dripped ink. "Stop," she shouted, her voice echoing in the endless mirrors. The hum pushed a word into her mind, "Truth, truth." Clara screamed, her marked hands blazing. The mirrors cracked, the eyes blinked, and the other Claras vanished. The room shook, the shadows pouring in, not formless now but sharp, with claws and teeth. They didn't attack, but they circled, their whispers sharp answer, or stay. Clara clutched the key and quill, her hands trembling. The hum guided her, and she saw a door knot in the mirrors, but behind her, small and wooden, with a spiral carved into it. She ran for it, the shadows chasing, their glowing slits blazing. Her marked hands glowed as she touched the door, and it opened, revealing a hallway lined with mirrors that showed only darkness. She ran through, the mirrors shattering behind her, the shadows screaming. At the end was another door, this one made of light, pulsing like the starlight in the book. The hum urged her forward, and she stepped through, landing in the lot on Willow Street. The library was gone, the sky dark and heavy with rain. The key and quill were still in her pocket, and her marked hands burned, the spirals brighter than ever. Clara ran home, the mirror's eyes still watching her in her mind. The hum was softer, but it whispered, "You are the keeper." She hid in her room, staring at the spirals, the key, the quill. The library was binding her, showing her truths she couldn't escape. The mirrors had held 1,000 eyes, 1,000 Clara's, and she knew she'd see them again. The library wasn't done, and neither was she. Clara was no longer just Clara. The spiral marks on her palms pulsed like twin hearts, glowing through her gloves, and the silver key and black quill in her pocket were anchors tying her to the library. It was Wednesday, and Blackhollow felt like a ghost town, streets too empty, air too heavy, as if the world were holding its breath. The hum in her head was a constant song, weaving through her thoughts with whispers of mirrors, eyes, and truths too vast to hold. Her dreams were filled with other Clara's winged Claude, glowing, and the library's voice calling her keeper. She hadn't gone back to Willow Street since the mirror room, but the pull was a rope around her chest, tightening with every hour. She stayed in her room all morning, ignoring her parents' knocks and Lila's texts. The spirals burned, the key warmed, and the quill seemed to hum, matching the library's song. By dusk, as the sky turned a deep, unnatural red, Clara couldn't resist. She pulled on her boots, her father's coat, and slipped out, the key and quill heavy in her pocket. Willow Street was silent, and the lot waited, the library standing tall, its dark stone walls shimmering under a sky that pulsed with strange, flickering lights. The serpent knocker door gleamed, and Clara's marked hands throbbed as she approached. The door opened before she touched it, a low moan that echoed in her bones. She stepped inside, the air thick with the smell of old paper, and something sharp, like starlight trapped in glass. The shelves loomed, their books trembling, some glowing, others whispering in voices that curled like smoke. The shadows were here, sliding along the floor, their glowing slits watching but not chasing. The hum guided her deeper into the maze, past aisles that twisted like veins, until she reached a new chamber. It was vast, its ceiling a dome of black glass, studded with stars that moved, falling like rain, then rising back up. The walls were lined with shelves, but these held no books, only pages, thousands of them, floating in the air, glowing with light that pulsed in colors Clara couldn't name. Some pages were blank, others covered in words that shifted, forming stories of worlds lost, skies broken, and a keeper bound to hold them. In the center was a pedestal, and on it sat a book knot, the weight of unseen stars, but a new one, its cover white and shimmering, like moonlight on snow. Its title was etched in gold, The Fall of Starlit Words. The hum came from the book, and Clara's marked hands burned as she approached. The whispers started, not the shadows' voices, but the library's, chanting, "Read, read, read." She didn't want to, but the key and quill in her pocket pulsed, urging her forward. The pages in the air swirled around her, their words brushing her skin like feathers, telling stories of stars that fell and became words, of books that held universes. Her marked hands glowed, the spirals blazing, and she opened the book. The pages were alive, not with ink or starlight, but with stars themselves, tiny glowing orbs that floated up, spinning around her. They burned, not with heat, but with truths, showing her visions of galaxies born and dying, of creatures that sang in light, of a library that was more than a place, a heart, a mind, a will. The stars whispered, "Keeper, you are bound. Hold the words, or they fall." Clara's head spun, the stars pulling at her mind, trying to pour their truths into her. She saw Blackhollow gone, its streets replaced by pages, its people trapped in words. She saw herself, standing in the library, her eyes glowing, her hands dripping with starlight. The hum sang, and the pages in the air moved faster, their words sharper, cutting into her thoughts. She tried to close the book, but it wouldn't move, the stars holding her hands, their light burning her skin. A voice cut through the chaos, not the hum, not the whispers, but something new, soft and cold. "Enough." Clara blinked, and the stars dimmed. The book closed, and the pages in the air fell, scattering like leaves. Standing before her was the librarian, her silver hair glowing, her eyes like twin voids. "You cannot run," she said, her voice sharp. "The stars have chosen you." Clara's heart raced. "I don't want this. I don't want to be your keeper." The librarian's smile was thin, like a crack in ice. "The library does not ask, it binds." She gestured to the book, its cover pulsing. "Read, or the stars will take you." The shadows moved, circling closer, their glowing slits blazing. The pages on the floor rose, their words chanting, "Keeper, keeper, keeper." Clara's marked hands burned, and the key and quill in her pocket felt heavy, like stones. She opened the book again, and the stars surged, pulling her into their light. She saw the library's heart, a vast pulsing thing, not alive, but eternal, holding the universe's stories. She saw herself bound to it, her voice its voice, her hands its hands. Clara screamed, slamming the book shut. The stars flared, and the room shook, the pages in the air bursting into light. The shadows lunged, their claws reaching, but Clara ran, the hum roaring in her head. The aisles twisted, the shelves bending, the books screaming. She found a door, small, wooden, with a spiral carved into it. Her marked hands glowed as she touched it, and it opened, revealing a hallway lined with stars, floating like the ones in the book. She ran through, the stars burning her skin, their light blinding. At the end was another door, this one made of light, pulsing like a heartbeat. The hum urged her forward, and she stepped through, landing in the lot on Willow Street. The library was gone, the sky dark and heavy with clouds. The key and quill were still in her pocket, and her marked hands burned, the spirals brighter than ever. Clara ran home, the stars' whispers echoing in her mind. The hum was softer, but it wasn't gone. It whispered, "You are the keeper." She hid in her room, staring at the spirals, the key, the quill. The library was binding her, filling her with stars and words she couldn't escape. The truths were too heavy, but Clara knew she'd go back. The stars had fallen into the pages, and she was their keeper. Clara was unraveling. The spiral marks on her palms glowed like twin moons, burning through her gloves, and the silver key and black quill in her pocket were chains binding her to the library. It was Thursday, and Blackhollow felt like a memory, fading into fog streets, silent, houses dim, as if the town was slipping away. The hum in her head was a relentless tide, carrying whispers of stars, pages, and truths too heavy to hold. Her dreams were a maze of shelves, eyes, and voices calling her keeper. The library's truths, Blackhollow, gone, herself changed, clung to her. Heavier with each day, she hadn't gone near Willow Street since the starlit pages, since the librarians. Cold warning and the stars that burned her with their secrets. But staying away was pointless. The spirals throbbed, the key and quill pulsed, and the hum sang, "Return, return, return." Clara tried to focus at school, but her thoughts drifted, her pencil tracing spirals on her notebook. Lila asked what was wrong, but Clara mumbled excuses, hiding her marked hands. By dusk, as the sky turned a deep, unnatural violet, she gave in. She pulled on her boots, her father's coat, and slipped out. The key and quill warm in her pocket. The lot on Willow Street was waiting. The library loomed, its dark stone walls shimmering under a sky that flickered with ghostly lights, like stars drowning in ink. The serpent knocker door pulsed, and Clara's marked hands ached as she approached. The door opened before she touched it, a low groan that vibrated in her chest. She stepped inside, the air thick with the smell of dust and something cold, like frozen metal. The shelves towered, their books trembling, some glowing, others whispering in voices that curled like shadows. The familiar shadows were here, sliding along the floor, their glowing slits watching but not chasing. The hum guided her deeper into the maze, past aisles that twisted like scars, until she reached a new chamber. It was small, its walls bare, except for a single door knot, wood or iron, but a void, black and endless, with no frame, no handle, just a spiral etched in light that matched her marks. The hum came from the door, and Clara's marked hands burned as she approached. The whispers started, not the shadows' voices, but the library's, chanting, "Step, step, step." She didn't want to, but the key and quill in her pocket pulsed, urging her forward. The door's spiral glowed, and when she touched it, her hands flared, the spirals blazing. The void rippled, like water under moonlight, and Clara saw nothing. Beyond it no room, no light, just darkness that felt alive. Watching her, the hum sang, and the whispers grew louder, chanting, "Go, go, go." Clara's heart raced. The void was wrong, a hole in the world, but the library's pull was stronger. She stepped forward, and the darkness swallowed her. For a moment, there was nothing, no sound, no light, no air. Then she landed, stumbling, in a place that wasn't. A place it was nowhere. The ground was glass, reflecting a sky of stars that burned too bright, too close. There were no walls, no shelves, just an endless expanse of glass and stars. And doors, hundreds of them, floating in the air, each one different. Some were wood, carved with spirals. Others were metal, rusted and dented. A few were light, pulsing like the starlit pages. The hum was deafening, a chorus of voices, and the whispers chanted, "Choose, choose, Choose. Clara's marked hands glowed, and the key and quill in her pocket burned. She walked, her boots echoing on the glass, the stars above screaming in voices. She almost understood. The doors watched her, their surfaces shifting, showing glimpses of other places, Blackhollow, burning, shelves swallowing the sky, herself with glowing eyes, holding a book that bled light. One door, small and wooden, with a spiral carved into it, pulsed brighter than the rest. The hum urged her toward it, and Clara's hands moved on their own, reaching for the key, before she could touch it. A voice cut through the hum, not the library's, but the librarian's, cold and sharp. Choose wisely, keeper. Not all doors lead home. Clara spun, but the librarian wasn't there, just her voice, echoing in the nowhere. The shadows appeared, not slinking, but standing, their glowing slits blazing. They didn't chase, but they whispered, choose or stay. Clara's mind spun. The doors were a trap, a test, and she didn't know the answer. The hum pushed a word into her head. Nowhere. Nowhere, Clara said, her voice trembling. This door leads to nowhere. The shadows hissed, retreating, and the wooden door flared, its spiral glowing. Clara slid the key into a lock she hadn't seen before, and the door opened, revealing darkness. The hum urged her forward, and she stepped through, the stars screaming behind her. She landed in the lot on Willow Street, the library gone, the sky dark and heavy with clouds. The key and quill were still in her pocket, and her marked hands burned, the spirals brighter than ever. Clara ran home, the nowhere stars still burning in her mind. The hum was softer, but it whispered, you are the keeper. She hid in her room, staring at the spirals, the key, the quill. The library was binding her, testing her with doors and truths she couldn't escape. The nowhere had shown her something, a choice, a test, a truth, and Clara knew she'd face it again. The library wasn't done, and neither was she. Clara was no longer just a girl. The spiral marks on her palms glowed like dying stars, searing through her gloves, and the silver key and black quill in her pocket were chains binding her to the library's will. It was Friday, and Blackhollow was fading, streets silent, houses dim, the air thick with a fog that clung like a second skin. The hum in her head was a roar, weaving through her thoughts with whispers of doors, stars, and truths too heavy to carry. Her dreams were a chaos of shelves, eyes, and voices calling her keeper. The nowhere door's test lingered, its endless stars and choices burning in her mind. She hadn't gone back to Willow Street, but the library's pull was a knife in her chest, sharp and relentless. She stayed in her room all day, ignoring her parents' worried knocks and Leela's texts. The spirals throbbed, the key and quill pulsed, and the hum sang, finish, finish, finish. Clara tried to read, to draw, to do anything normal, but her hands traced spirals, and her thoughts drifted to the library's truths. Blackhollow, gone, herself bound, the world unraveling. By dusk, as the sky turned a sickly black, she gave in. She pulled on her boots, her father's coat, and slipped out. The key and quill heavy in her pocket, Willow Street was a void. The lot was gone, replaced by the library, its dark stone walls towering, stretching into the fog, its windows glowing with a light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The serpent knocker door gleamed, and Clara's marked hands burned as she approached. The door opened before she touched it, a deep groan that shook the ground. She stepped inside, the air thick with the smell of ink, dust, and something alive. like blood or breath. The library was vast, endless, its shelves stretching into darkness, their books trembling, glowing, screaming. The shadows were everywhere, not slinking but standing, their glowing slits blazing like stars. The hum guided her deeper into the maze, past aisles that twisted like arteries, until she reached a chamber that felt like the heart of the library itself. It was enormous, its ceiling a sky of swirling stars, its walls pulsing with spirals that matched her marks. In the center was a pedestal, and on it sat a book knot, the weight of unseen stars, not any book she'd seen before. Its cover was black, endless, like the nowhere void, and its title was carved in light, The End of All Stories. The hum came from the book, and Clara's marked hands blazed as she approached. The whispers started, not just the libraries, but every voice she'd heard shadows. Stars, the librarian chanting, "Open, open, open." She didn't want to, but the key and quill burned, and her hands moved, reaching for the book. Its cover was cold, alive, and when she opened it, the pages were a void. Not blank, but filled with darkness that pulled at her, sucking her in. The void showed her everything. Blackhollow was gone, its streets shelves, its people words in books. The library grew, swallowing the world, its shelves stretching to the stars. Clara saw herself, eyes glowing, hands dripping with starlight, standing at the heart of it all. The keeper who held the universe's truths. The hum roared, the whispers screamed, "You are the keeper. Finish the story." Clara's mind broke under the weight. She saw stars fall, skies burn, worlds end. She saw herself, not a girl but something else, bound to the library forever. The books. Void pulled harder, trying to swallow her, but a voice cut through, not the hum, not the whispers, but her own, small and fierce. "No." Clara shouted, slamming the book shut. The chamber shook, the stars and the ceiling falling, crashing like glass. The shadows lunged, their claws sharp, their glowing slits blazing. The librarian appeared, her silver hair glowing, her eyes voids. "You cannot refuse," she said, her voice cold. "The library is eternal. You are its keeper." Clara clutched the key and quill, her marked hands blazing. "I'm not your keeper," she screamed. The hum roared, the shadows closed in, but Clara ran, the aisles twisting, the shelves collapsing, books spilling like blood. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to escape. The library was alive, its walls pulsing, its stars screaming, and Clara felt it, her town, her world, slipping away. She found a door small, wooden, with a spiral carved into it. Her marked hands glowed as she touched it, the key fitting a lock she hadn't seen before. The door opened, revealing not the lot but Blackhollow, its streets fogged, its houses crumbling into pages. The library was spreading, swallowing everything. Clara ran, the hum chasing her, the shadows screaming, "Keeper, keeper, keeper." She reached her house, but it was wrong. Its walls were shelves, its windows books. Her parents were gone, their voices trapped in pages that floated in the air. Clara's heart broke, but the hum pushed a word into her mind. "End, end." She shouted, her marked hands blazing, the key and quill glowing. The library shook, the fog parting, and a final door appeared, not wood, not light, but a spiral of starlight. Clara stepped through, and the world vanished. She woke in her bed. The key and quill gone, the spirals on her hands faded, but still. There, Blackhollow was back, the streets quiet, the houses whole. But the hum lingered, faint but eternal, whispering, "You are the keeper." Clara didn't know if she'd ended the library or merely paused it. She didn't know if Black was real or a page in a book. But she knew one thing: she was bound, and the library would call again. Asterisk.